Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to journey way, way back. To the very beginning of English literature. We're talking heroes, monsters, the whole shebang, because we're diving into the world of Beowulf. And we're going to look at it through a really interesting lens, a translation from all the way back in 1892, to kind of get a feel for how people saw this ancient story over 100 years ago.
So right from the get-go, the translator, a guy named J.L. Hall, basically throws down the gauntlet. He's not just translating words here, he's on a mission. He wants to put Beowulf on the exact same legendary level as, say, Homer's Greek epics. He wants this story to be part of our shared cultural DNA. That's a pretty bold claim. So let's see if the poem actually lives up to it.
So what makes something an epic, really? Well, it all starts with building a world. And in Beowulf, that world revolves around these powerful kings, their super loyal warriors, and this magnificent hall that becomes the main stage for everything. First for glorious celebrations, and then, pretty soon, for some really horrific violence.
Okay, so at the very heart of this world is King Hrothgar. He's the king of the Danes, and to celebrate all his success and, reward his warriors, he builds this massive mead hall called Heremod. And it's more than just a building. It's a huge symbol of his power and his generosity. It's the place for feasting, for telling stories. It's the center of their community.
And, check out how the source's own glossary from back in 1892 defines him. It doesn't just say he's a king, it calls him the typical Teutonic king, which basically means a king of the ancient Germanic tribes. He's generous, lavish with gifts, but he's also fated to be long unable to enjoy his hall. Wow, that one little description right there, it just perfectly captures the mix of glory and tragedy that really defines this whole poem.
So you can just imagine it, right? The sounds of joy, music, and all this laughter are echoing from Heremod out into the dark, misty swamps. But that celebration doesn't go unnoticed. No way. That sound, the sound of human happiness, it's almost like a beacon, and it's attracting something monstrous that's lurking out there in the nearby fen.
And that right there brings us to the poem's first great evil. And we're not just talking about some beast. This is a creature literally born from jealousy and ancient malice. This is the monster, Grendel.
So Grendel, he's described as the March Stepper. And he basically stalks the borderlands, the line between civilization and the wild. And for him, those sounds of joy coming from Hrothgar's hall, it's like a kind of physical pain. It just drives him into this jealous rage. He literally cannot stand their happiness.
Now, the glossary from our source gives us his origin story, and it is absolutely chilling. He's a descendant of Cain from the Bible, the first murderer ever. That makes him a literal outcast from both God and humanity. He is doomed to haunt these desolate moors, and he's basically the physical embodiment of envy and malice.
And look, this isn't just a one-time thing. Not at all. For 12 long years, Grendel terrorizes Heremod. Night after night, he storms the hall, just snatching up Hrothgar's best warriors. That great hall, which was once this symbol of pure joy, it becomes a tomb.
So, as you can imagine, the Danes are in despair. Their king is completely helpless. But word of this unending horror, it travels across the sea. And over in the land of the Geats, these stories reach the one person who just might be strong enough to finally do something about it. And that person is Beowulf, a warrior with just incredible strength and courage. When he hears about what Hrothgar is going through, he doesn't hesitate, not for a second. He gathers his best men, gets a ship ready, and decides he's going to sail to the land of the Danes and face this monster himself. And the glossary really paints a picture of a legendary figure. He's not just strong. Get this. He has the strength of 30 men in his hand grip alone. He's already famous for all these incredible feats. He is pretty much the perfect answer to a seemingly unstoppable evil.
So Beowulf makes this incredibly bold choice. He decides he's going to fight Grendel on his own terms. No weapons, just pure strength. He lies in wait in Heremod, and when the monster bursts in, this brutal hand-to-hand struggle just erupts. And in this just stunning display of power, Beowulf gets a grip on Grendel's arm. He just holds on, and with one final mighty pull, he rips the entire arm clean from its socket. The monster, mortally wounded, flees howling back to his lair to die.
But hold on, the victory is short-lived. Because the very next night, Grendel's monstrous mother shows up, and she is looking for revenge. To finish the job, Beowulf now has to go down into her terrifying underwater den.
It's another desperate battle, but then he spots a magical giant sword in her lair. He grabs it, slays her, and comes back to the surface with Grendel's head as one final gruesome trophy. Okay, so Beowulf has saved the Danes, he's now a living legend. But his own story is far from over. Decades later, as a king in his own land, he's going to face one last, fateful confrontation.
So, Beowulf goes back home to the Geats, just loaded with treasures and glory. And in time, he becomes their king, and he rules wisely for 50 peaceful years. 50 years! But in his old age, a new terror awakens. A dragon, absolutely enraged that some thief has stolen from its ancient hoard of gold, starts to burn his kingdom to the ground.
And even though he's an old man now, Beowulf knows it's his duty as king to face this threat himself. So he goes to the dragon's barrow, ready for his final fight. And in this climactic battle of fire and steel, he actually manages to kill the beast, but he's mortally wounded in the struggle. The hero and the monster, they die together.
So, after 3 epic battles and a heroic death, what's left? Why is this more than just some ancient action story? Why does Beowulf still endure after all this time? Well, our translator from 1892 argues that the poem's real power is that it's like a cultural snapshot. It's a window into the values of these ancient Germanic peoples, their love of adventure, their warrior code, and this ever-present shadow of fate, or what they called word. It's this idea that, hey, what is meant to be, will be.
And the poem doesn't end with all the dragon's treasure. It ends with a tribute to Beowulf the man. He's mourned not just as some mighty warrior, but as a good king. Brave, of course, but also gentle and generous. And in that world, those were the ultimate virtues of a great leader. And all of that brings us right back to our translator's hope from 1892. Now, while it might not have the same household name recognition as, say, the Trojan War, Beowulf has for sure carved out its own immortal place. It's still this incredibly powerful story about courage against the darkness, about the duties of being a leader, and about the tragic end that waits for even the greatest of heroes. So, has it earned its spot on that epic pedestal? Well, after more than 1,000 years, I think its story still speaks for itself.